So in marketing terms, a funnel drives a customer towards a buying decision. So
Mhm.
we want our guests to return. So, we want them to be return guests. So we know what they're gonna expect at the proper. They know what they're gonna expect with the property. We know what we're gonna expect from that guest because we've had them before.
Mhm.
Or, with direct bookings being, such a big thing in the industry, getting the guests from the OTAs and then driving them towards direct bookings and as the next step in that relationship. Like
Mhm.
that's kind of how I set up my guest communication. So it's, trying to create clear guest communication, clear expectations at the right time of that journey and the guest experience. And then ultimately after their stay, trying to get some contact information from them and get them into my direct booking funnel so that they will book direct next time instead of booking through Airbnb, VRBO.
Welcome to Short Term Rental Solutions, a show for hosts and property managers looking to overcome obstacles, maximize revenue, and optimize their short term rental business by learning from the innovators who are designing the solutions that are shaping our industry. Hello, everyone. Welcome to this week's episode of the Short Term Rental Solutions Show. We are really fortunate this week, and it's always fun talking to property management software companies. We have Hospitable with us. Brian is here, and he's going to not only tell us a little bit about Hospitable, but he's actually going to show us a little bit about Hospitable at the end of the show. So we're really excited to learn about Hospitable this week and then also get a chance to see a little bit about Hospitable. Obviously, for our podcast listeners, that'll be bonus content that we'll have a link to in the show notes. But if you're joining us directly through our YouTube channel, then at the end of the video here, you'll be able to get a glimpse at Hospitable and one of the newest features that they recently launched. Brian and I were talking, and he's going to show us a little bit about that. So looking forward to that. Thank you so much, Brian, for joining us today.
Thank you for having us. We really appreciate it. We're excited.
Yeah. Cool. All right. Well, Brian, there is likely people listening and watching today that aren't familiar with you or Hospitable. So let's just start things off by letting you introduce yourself and tell us a little bit about your experience in the short term rental industry and how you found yourself with Hospitable.
Sure. So I am a property manager as well as a sales rep for Hospitable. So I started as a property manager in 2018. My wife and I bought a duplex and we did like the house hacking thing. So we lived in one unit and rented out the other. So that was really great. And it got our feet wet for, doing short-term rentals and kind of understanding the business. From there, we've bought and sold other rentals. We sold, fully managed vacation rentals. We manage rentals for other people, and that's all we do now.
Mhm.
So since 2018, so the last 5 years, we've just trying to build our short-term rental management empire where we live. And then last year, 2022, I saw that Hospitable was hiring. That's the software I've used for a number of years to manage my rentals.
Mhm.
So I decided to throw my hat in the ring for the job, and they were, I don't know, unlucky enough to have me, lucky enough, I'm not really sure, but I got the job and, been trying to help other hosts around the world understand how Hospitable can help them manage their vacation rentals for the last year.
Yeah, that's great. So, how, like your experience with Hospitable, you've been with Hospitable. How many properties do you manage that you are effectively able to manage and coordinate through Hospitable?
So right now it's just 12, so it's
Uh-huh.
not a lot of properties, but it's a lot for my wife and I, who both have full-time jobs and, being trying to manage things on the side. My wife is now pregnant, so there's a lot of day-to-day things that, we don't have time for, and that's where Hospitable kind of comes in to help manage, automate things and help make things a lot easier for us. So it's a great tool and it's helped us pick up properties. It's helped us, look professional to our owners so we can create like an owner portal, things like that.
Mhm.
So we're hoping to grow the business and continue to pick up new properties and definitely utilize Hospitable as the PMS system to do that.
Well, you don't ever have to apologize for only having 12 properties because
Sure.
proper, it I think once you get your systems and your organization in place, it's really much more feasible to begin to grow that portfolio. So we all start somewhere and you know what? 12 is more than I have. So kudos to you and we're all on a journey, right?
Absolutely. And I mean, we think about sometimes the mistakes we've made with our first rental and our second rental and our third rental and the different things we would do, there are differences between what we do now and what we do then and the experience for our guests and our owners and I mean things change really quickly and they don't change. So, we're hoping to, continue to pick up. Our goal is 25 by the end of the year. So
Wonderful.
we're trying to get there as quickly as we can.
Yeah. Well, congratulations on that. That's
Thank you.
fabulous. I look forward to, staying in touch and hearing how you guys continue on that journey. So let's start talking about hospitable. So what aspects of property management does hospitable support owners with?
Good question. So we try to help people with, automate the day-to-day business. So the day-to-day operations that we have as property managers or owners or hosts, it's guest communication, Airbnb reviews, creating lock codes and trying to, communicate that to the guests,
Hmm.
communicating with the cleaner, sharing calendar access. We've all been there with, texting cleaners back and forth, taking screenshots. So we automate, automated messages, scheduled messages, Airbnb reviews, creating lock codes for all the guests, cleaner SMS, so text messages or emails that are automated, creating automated tasks, sharing calendar access with them automatically so they have access to the portal so they don't have to ask you when the check-ins are. They can log in and see that themselves. We've got unified inbox and a unified calendar so that it's going to keep all the booking channels together all in one place. So you don't have to go to the different apps. So we connect to Airbnb, VRBO, and Booking.com. You can see
Hmm.
all those reservations and all those conversations in one place within Hospitable. And then we just created a direct booking platform that's, kind of, I think it's probably the most complete direct booking platform on the market. So it helps hosts take direct bookings, helps them screen the guests, provide insurance for the stay or damage protection. And then by the end of the year, we will, add the or tax remittance. So we'll be able to collect and remit occupancy taxes for guests or for hosts on behalf of the guests. So that'll be something that'll be really neat. And then we have an AI portion of the app. So it helps save a little bit of time with generating automated responses and automatically messaging the guests, specific things that they might be asking.
Yeah. Well, that's a lot. Thank you
It
for
is a
giving
lot
us that high level.
for sure.
So, a little bit, let's talk about messaging for a minute here because that really is a huge part of operations. I don't know about you and the way you run manage those properties that you guys take care of, but I think I send out like 8 messages from the point that my guest initially books a reservation, like that confirmation message that goes out. I have a message that shares a link to my digital guest guide. I have a message that goes out about 7 days before that's just kind of like, hey, your trip's coming up, super excited. And, just includes additional information that they may need. I think I send the guide link out another time, but then there's like the day of check-in, the morning after they check in, all these series of messages clear through to a message, the day after they check out.
Mhm.
What's the flow and how can hospitable help support hosts and automate as much of that as possible?
Yeah, and I think the flow is different. It's different for everybody. So the user
Right.
experience that you want your guests to have is different from the user experience that I want my guests to have. So I personally like to think of it as a funnel. So in marketing terms, a funnel drives a customer towards a buying decision. So
Mhm.
we want our guests to return. So, we want them to be return guests. So we know what they're gonna expect at the property. They know what they're gonna expect at the property. We know what we're gonna expect from that guest because we've had them before.
Mhm.
Or, with direct bookings being, such a big thing in the industry, getting the guests from the OTAs and then driving them towards direct bookings and as the next step in that relationship. Like
Mhm.
that's kind of how I set up my guest communication. So it's, trying to create clear guest communication, clear expectations at the right time of that journey and the guest experience. And then ultimately after their stay, trying to get some contact information from them and get them into my direct booking funnel so that they will book direct next time instead of booking through Airbnb, VRBO. So that's kind of how you look at or that's how I personally look at the guest experience section in Hospitable. So that's all the automated messaging,
Mhm.
but that's totally different for everybody. So, trying to communicate all the information you want guests to have. You might want to tell your guests about specific restaurants and things to do in the city where your properties are located. Maybe I don't do that. I tell my
Mhm.
guests twice what their lock code is, and that's automatically generated through Hospitable, so I don't have to do any of that. And it's fine tuned over time as well. The second lock code message we just started within the last few months
Mhm.
because we would send that 2 days beforehand, and we would get a lot of messages the day of check-in from people that wouldn't necessarily go read the messages that we'd been sending them. So we would just send them that information again. So it's really just fine tuning over time what that guest experience looks like and how it works for you. But there's, within Hospitable, it's not a set way that you have to do things. We give you a bunch of tools to create your guest experience, and then it's up to you to decide what kind of journey you want your guest to be on, and then set that up exactly how you want it.
Yeah. So you mentioned locks real quick. What are some of the locks that people can use that integrate with Hospitable?
There's a lot of them. So there we have direct integrations with some lock companies. So Schlage, Encode, Yale, and August are three of the big ones,
Yeah,
and we
which
integrate
are
with
very popular among hosts. So,
very, very popular. And I remember, gosh, it was during the pandemic, the Schlage on code locks were impossible to find. And
yeah.
if you did find them, they were like $800 on Amazon. So that was
Wow.
kind of crazy. But I usually buy I'll buy one if I'm at Home Depot and I see that they have one on the shelf. I'll just buy it. If we don't need it, I'll just put it in storage and then we have it the next time
Yeah.
because they're just such great locks. So we integrate with Schlage, Yale, August. We integrate with Remote Lock and Smart Things, which are third parties to help manage other lock systems. So some of those other lock systems are Quickset. I believe Igloo Home is another one, and Igloo Home and Nuki locks are two that we're working on that should be live in the next few months. So we'll
For
have direct,
direct integrate.
yep, for a direct integration with those lock companies. So we've gotten a lot of we try to be host feedback driven. So we
Uh-huh.
started with Schlage. We introduced Yale in August. We get a lot of interest about Nuki Home or Nuki and Igloo Home. So we're
Mhm.
trying to launch those. There's other lock companies that we get interest from. So we're slowly trying to integrate with new lock companies as often as we can. And that is a free integration that's included in the price of the software. So I know there's certain PMS systems out there charge guests for lock codes. We don't charge you for lock codes. It's integrated in the software.
Oh, that's really handy.
Sure.
O Okay, so you're helping us with the messaging, and those messages can be automated, like set it and forget it, right?
Correct.
Awesome.
Well,
Okay.
let me just say this. So there's set it and forget it to a point.
Okay.
You have the flexibility to edit the messages if you want to. So if a guest communicates with you some piece of information and you want to edit a future scheduled message to reflect that you had this conversation or to change it a little bit, they already asked for the check-in instructions, you sent them some of that information, you can go into your scheduled message, delete that message, change a portion of it. So it is set it and forget it, but it's still flexible for you as the host to be able to change if you need to.
Yeah, and you mentioned that AI is now available in connection with the messaging. So tell us a little bit about that and how that works. And we're all learning about AI and getting more comfortable with it.
Mhm.
So is there any checks there where I mean, an AI message could potentially be generated and you're like, "Well, I'm not exactly sure that's the way I would phrase that," or you want to tweak things. How does that all work within Hospitable as far as the AI messaging?
Absolutely. And I mean, I feel like it's a new frontier. It's really exciting to think about like what AI could bring to the table for hosts and managers. Is
Mhm.
all the time it could save, the experience it could have for the guest. But it is kind of scary to think about, Chat GPT just kind of makes up information sometimes. So, you don't fully trust something like that right now, but the AI we have built into the system can detect specific questions that the guest is asking. So it's topic driven. So right now it's, the big topics across the board are typically early check-in, late checkout, Wi-Fi, pets. Discount has been a big one lately. And
Uh-huh.
there's, I think, 20 to 25 different topics that we can detect a question about.
Mm,
When we detect that question based on some information you have in the system about your properties or about, the specific information you want to give the guest about the Wi-Fi or the early check-in, we
mm,
can then automate a response to that guest, or we can create a response and then let you know that we created this response. You can take a look at it and decide whether it's a good fit for that question and send it off, or you can make a decision that, this makes no sense. I can change it a little bit. I can delete it and start from scratch. So it's up to you, and it's really dependent on the topic. Like pets seems pretty binary. It's like either yes or no, right? So do you allow pets? Yes, we can allow pets. Here's a $50 fee at this property to allow you to bring your pet. So we can automatically send that to the guest. There's some, like air conditioning is a topic we can detect. There's probably a million different questions that the guest may be asking about the air conditioning. So that's a little bit more nuanced. You probably want to create that message and then not send it off automatically, which our system can do. So
mhm.
it's entirely up to your comfort level and how you want to communicate with the guest. If you want us to automate everything, we can do that. If you want us to create some responses for you and then you can send them off, we can do that too. The other part of the AI integration we have is we just launched a chat GPT integration in the guest inbox. So in the inbox, when a guest messages you, you can create a response for that guest based on ChatGPT. And
Mm,
it's a pretty neat integration. And I tried this out a few weeks ago with a guest I had who asked a bunch of information about things to do in the city that they're coming to. So I just hit the button with that the ChatGPT integration is, and it generated this like 4 paragraph response on, the different, music venues to see,
mm,
restaurants to check out, things to do in the city. And it was dead on. I think I changed a couple things in there that was just, my grammar might be a little bit different than what ChatGPT is generating. So I changed it a little bit, but it saved me a ton of time and not having to come up with a full response for this guest, and it created a really nice guest experience. So from their perspective, I was the super host, quote unquote,
yeah,
but we're letting ChatGPT like kind of handle the heavy lifting for that.
yeah. And just make things faster and easier all the way around.
100%.
So you also mentioned Airbnb, VRBO, and Booking.com. So when I generate a message in Hospitable, do the guests receive it as if it was through those platforms directly?
They do.
Okay.
Yep. So it's native messaging. So we don't do any sort of SMS messaging, and like your Airbnb guest is not going to get an email from Hospitable or from you. It's going to go directly through that channel.
Okay. And then the cleaners and the scheduling and whatnot, how does that's automated? Like tell us a little bit about how that actually can support us.
Sure, absolutely. So you can add your cleaners as what we call teammates or users. So
Okay.
the teammate role is, there are people that are going to get notifications of things, so either text or email notifications, or they're going to get tasks added to a calendar, or both. So ultimately, we can notify your cleaner whenever there's a new reservation, whenever there's a change to a reservation or a cancellation, and then we can send them a reminder, maybe the day before, a couple hours before, or right at checkout time, letting them know that they've got this cleaning at this specific property. So we try to automate that experience for, between you and your teammates, so you're not manually texting people things. And then
Mhm.
we can share calendar access with the cleaner through what we call user management. And then you can specify different access you want to give your cleaner. So I think we've all probably, tested or dealt with Airbnb's Teams function or their co-hosting function where the permissions aren't great. You have to give somebody permissions to a whole big array of different features within the software. You can't just generate like a specific feature. So within Hospitable, you can choose very granular features that you want to give somebody access to.
Mm,
So for a cleaner, you could give your cleaner access to one property or 3 properties. You can give them access to just see the calendar. They're not going to see your pricing. They're not going to be
mm,
able to change your pricing or availability. They can't message your guests. When they click on the calendar, they won't be able to see any pricing or see anything in that reservation. All they're going to see is the check in and check out. So it's just giving somebody the specific permissions they need so that they can help you be more efficient, and they can be more efficient on their own too. The other thing we have is an integration with Turno. Turno is a little bit more robust than what we offer. Turno, you can pay your cleaners automatically. They can, accept and decline tasks. They can send you notes, pictures, that sort of thing. And we have a partnership with Turno, so that's free for hosts to use through Hospitable. So if you're already using Turno, you can integrate it with Hospitable, stop paying for Turno altogether, and
mm.
then just use Hospitable integrated with Turno.
Yeah. Is there is there an additional like add-on fee for that messaging and communication with your team members through Hospitable?
There's not, no, that's included in the base fee, or included in the main software.
Okay, that's good to know.
Yep.
Okay, so let's talk about the direct booking feature. I know that's one of the newest things that has launched, and
Mhm.
there's really a hunger. I think most hosts who are hosting or, obviously property managers, I think it's given that they want to have some sort of a direct booking solution. But people who are really viewing this as a business, they do want a way for people to be able to book directly with them as opposed to always having to come back to them through the OTAs. So tell us about this feature that you guys have recently released and how that will help.
Absolutely. So I just like you said it, everybody wants to have a direct booking platform, whether they have one property or 400 properties.
Right.
It's the big thing in the industry. You want to create a brand around yourself and your property. You want to be able to take those bookings away from the OTAs, regardless of your experience. Like I say that I love Airbnb. Airbnb is pretty cheap as a host. It costs us 3%, and they
Yeah.
do all the marketing and heavy lifting. So I love that platform. But I do want to have my own guests, and just like, you want to have your own guests and be able to, email those guests to get them to come back and book direct with you next time instead of having to rely on them booking direct through the platform. So we can help guests create direct booking websites. If you already have a direct booking website or you have a custom site somewhere, on
Like
a
a
platform.
WordPress site or
Exactly, yeah, like a WordPress site. You can use our booking widgets. You can embed the widgets on your direct booking site so that guests can see your content and then they can book direct through Hospitable. When a guest goes through the flow, we'll process the payment for them. So you don't have to worry about processing payments. You don't have to worry
oh,
about doing chargebacks, refunds, anything like that.
so you don't necessarily have to have your own personal Stripe account, is that what you're saying?
You do not necessarily have to have your own Stripe account. So
Okay.
we can do all that for you. We can verify all the guests and screen them through a company called AutoHost. So we have an integration with
Yes.
AutoHost to screen everybody. And then we can provide up to a $5 million insurance for each guest stay, or it's a damage protection, not insurance,
Yeah.
through Superhog. So that's really nice for, guest damages, something happened, whether it was malicious or an accident, that Superhog can help cover that.
So
And
are those is the Auto Host and the Superhog an additional fee for those? Because 'cause they're separate companies, right? I mean, I know that they
they're
are, but
they are
yeah.
separate companies. So the direct booking portion is an add-on from Hospitable, and then the add-on, everything is included in that. So
Okay.
you can choose the add-on portion if you want to use direct bookings, and then we can process the payments. We can screen the guests through AutoHost. We can provide insurance or guest protect damage protection through Superhog, and then currently we're going to calculate your occupancy taxes and then send you that money so you can remit it to your county, city, state.
Yeah.
Hopefully by the end of the year, we'll be able to actually collect and remit that money for you. So you're never going to see your tax money. We're just going to send that to your local government for you, just like Airbnb and VRBO does. So it's kind of what we want to create is your own version of Airbnb. So
Mm.
it's everything is done for you. You don't have to do anything. You don't have to manage connections with these other companies. We'll just manage all that for you, send you your payout just like Airbnb does, and let you create a brand around your rental, your business.
Yeah. Well, it definitely, especially for people who are getting into co-hosting a property managing and stuff, sounds like it's almost like having another employee that's like helping take care of all these other things. So that sounds like it will be something that people will be interested in exploring. And I just
It
want to
really is.
restate
Yep.
I want to restate to make sure I heard you correctly. What you're saying is when you pay for the direct booking add-on feature with Hospitable, in addition to getting that website, you're getting Hospitable services with basically helping with the payment remittance, well, collection. And then also you're getting the services of Superhog and AutoHost kind of all bundled in addition to the direct booking website. That's kind of a bundle of features that are included for like a flat fee, right?
That is correct. So there are two options with direct bookings. There's a basic option where you can connect your own Stripe account, and then you can connect any other app that you want to screen guests, ensure the stays, do your taxes. I typically recommend that for hosts who have been doing direct bookings for some time. They've already got systems in place. They know what they're doing. They know how to handle that volume of direct bookings.
Mhm.
The other option is the where we do the payment processing, we screen the guests, we do all that for you. That's more for hosts who are new to this, don't really know how to manage that process, want some help with it, and are used to kind of relying on Airbnb and VRBO because it's not much of a different experience. It's essentially, you're just turning on your direct site, doing the marketing to get your guests, and then we'll handle everything for you. So those are the two options. So if you're used to taking direct bookings and you just need a new platform to do that, Hospitable might be great for you. If you want to start doing direct bookings and you want somebody else to do all the hard work for you, I think the premium version is probably the best option.
So, okay, let's talk for a split second about creating this website. What is that? Is it just test templates that we customize? How much like manual entry about our descriptions and all that kind of stuff? What is the typical time frame that a person can expect to put in effort wise? And that's maybe a tough question to answer because people who only have a couple of properties. It's going to look different than people who have a number of them. But how does that basically work?
Yeah, and it's not a tough question. So we are going to pull in your property information from Airbnb. So you're not
Okay.
creating listings, you're not going to put in your title, description, pictures, anything like that. We're going to take everything from your Airbnb listing, create listing pages for you. And then, like you said, we do have some themed templates. So you can choose like a design and a vibe that you like for your properties.
Hmm.
And then you can add some design options. So you can add a logo, you can add some social icons, you can add some more text to the main page. You can add images for like an image slider on the main page. So for instance, on my direct booking site, I've got pictures of the city that my properties are in and different landmarks around the city. I've got my Instagram and my Facebook linked to that, and then some text about our company. So there's some design options you can have on the main page. And then again, when a guest clicks on the the booking site or the booking page for the listing, they're going to see everything that's showing up in your Airbnb listing. So if you wanted to start creating a direct booking site right this second, it could probably be up and running in about 15 minutes. So it doesn't take very long. You can add a custom domain if you want to, or you can use a domain that's hosted with us. We're going to provide you with an SSL certificate. So that's just like a safety guideline, and
Mhm.
so that guests know that they're being protected when they put in their payment information. So it's a pretty easy process, and it definitely doesn't take a lot of input from hosts if you don't want to.
Okay. And so when I make changes, you know, one of the ways that what people try to boost their property's view and like the way the algorithm in Airbnb, pushes it.
Mhm.
Hopefully you're on the first page or whatnot. Are those changes going to be made in Hospitable or over in Airbnb? And I'm assuming that it'll just refresh and continue to update that direct booking website. How does walk us through that workflow?
It does. So any change you make in Airbnb will reflect in Hospitable. So we're not what I would consider like a content management software or listing management. So we don't manage your listings. So any change you want to make to your listing, you would do that on Airbnb. Any
Okay.
change you make to your Airbnb listings in regard to your pictures, title, description, amenities, anything like that will reflect back into Hospitable, and then that'll be reflected on your direct booking site.
Okay. So the actual Airbnb becomes kind of the source of truth for that other types of content. Is that
Yep,
correct?
that's exactly right.
Okay, good. That's good to know because that's like it varies from one property management software to another.
For
So,
sure. And let me just clarify one thing that you
yeah.
can within Hospitable, you can update your direct booking site without updating your Airbnb listing.
Oh,
So we pull in information from Airbnb to update your direct site. If you wanted to create your or make your direct site slightly different, so different pictures, different text, you can do that. And what actually breaks the connection between the Hospitable listing and Airbnb, so that now anything for the future, we're not going to pull in any changes you make in Airbnb. So your hospitable listing can be different than what you have in your Airbnb listing. It's just entirely up to you. Do you want them to be uniform? Do you want one to look slightly different?
yeah.
Just it's up to you and how you want your guests to see that.
Does the pricing pull from Airbnb, like your nightly rates and your nightly minimums and whatnot?
It can. So we integrate to pull the pricing in from Airbnb or VRBO or Booking.com. We also integrate with Price Labs, Beyond, Wheelhouse, and Rate Genie.
Okay.
So if you wanted to use a dynamic pricing tool, you could do that, and then they'll push your pricing to us, and then we'll send it out to the different booking channels.
Okay. Perfect. That's great. So, all right. So now the onboarding process. Let's talk about that real quick because we've been
Mhm.
learning all about Hospitable and all these great things that it can do, but give us a little brief education on what is there like a paid onboarding service? You have to like a one-time setup fee. That's what I'm trying to say, or a support team member, or how does that work?
Sure. So we don't charge an onboarding fee, setup fee. I'm trying to think of all the other phrases that people call it in the industry. We don't charge you to get started. So we give you a 14-day free trial. So you can literally sign up today without a credit card. There's no contract you have to sign immediately. We don't do contracts. It's month to month. So
Okay.
if you use this for 2 months and you decide it's not a fit for you, you can cancel at any time. But you'll sign up for a 14-day trial. You have the option of setting up some demos with the sales team, whether that's a group demo or a one-on-one demo. And
Okay.
then we have support all around the world that's available to help anytime. They do a great job, and
Okay.
they love helping people. They want to do a good job and want our hosts to have a good experience, so they're always willing to help. The user interface, I think, is really really easy to follow, and it's very intuitive. So I've used other PMS systems personally, and I think they're all full of great options, but sometimes
Right.
they're hard to navigate and it's difficult to figure out, what to do first, what to do next. Hospitable, we're going to give you an onboarding guide built within the software, so you'll know it's going to guide you step by step through what to set up in the software, how to use the
Almost like a
features.
wizard.
Pretty
Is that
much,
what?
yep. That's exactly right. So it'll help you understand everything within the software, and then the actual dashboard is just it's very intuitive. It's easy to understand. It's easy to follow. So I think it's the easiest software to set up and get up and running. All you're going to do when you first connect is connect your Airbnb account, VRBO account, or Booking.com account. And by doing that, all you're doing is putting in your username and your password. So there isn't this long, drawn out connection process that could take months like some other systems. All we're doing is we're going to pull in your listings. We have API connections with all those channels. So
Mm.
we're going to pull in your properties. We're going to pull in your calendar, your reservations, your conversations, and then you'll link them together within the Hospitable dashboard. And you can start setting up your guest messages, cleaner notifications and tasks, Airbnb reviews, all that stuff. We've created a number of templates in the system for you already. So there's, I think, 10 guest messages in the software that we've written for you that you can just turn on and use right out of the box.
Mm,
We've set up 7 Airbnb reviews for you already that are written and ready to go. There's a number of cleaner notifications that we've set up for you. So I usually encourage people to edit that to make it sound like your hosting style, and the guest journey and the user experience that you want your cleaners to have.
mhm,
But you can use it right out of the box. So if you wanted to sign up today, turn on all the messaging, turn on the Airbnb reviews, turn on the cleaner notifications and tasks. You could be up and running in probably an hour, less than an hour. But usually kind of editing some of those messaging rules and editing some of the other text, it does take a little bit of time. So I think I tell people with 2 to 3 hours, if you spent, dedicated time on it, you could have Hospitable totally set up.
wow, awesome. Brian, you have told us all kinds of interesting things about Hospitable that I definitely feel like I was not as familiar, particularly with the direct booking features. So thank you for the education that you provided us about that. The one other thing that I wanted to know, we've got the small operators who only have, one or a handful of properties, all the way up to large property management software companies that potentially have hundreds of properties. Where along that spectrum is there a sweet spot or a part of that spectrum that seems to work well and be a good solution for these
Sure.
people?
Yes and no. So I think our typical customer is a small property manager, a homeowner, or a host co-host. So people that have
Mhm.
1 to 5 properties. That said, we have customers who have hundreds of properties, thousands of properties that use either all or a portion of the software.
Okay.
So a neat thing about Hospitable, so we can connect to Airbnb with another PMS system. So
Oh,
what a lot of larger hosts will do is they have their full-fledged PMS system that they have connected to Airbnb. They'll also connect Hospitable to do guest messaging because
okay.
we do that, I think, better than anybody else. So there really isn't a sweet spot. I mean, we can help you do whatever you need us to do as long as, we have that feature and we're a good fit for it. I've talked to people that have one property that have specific needs that we don't fill. I've talked to people that have hundreds of properties that need us for one specific thing, and we do that really, really well. So it really just depends on your needs and whether, we're offering what you need.
Awesome. Okay. Well, thank you so much for educating us on Hospitable today. We'll go ahead and let our podcast listeners go and want you to know that Brian and I are actually going to continue our conversation. He's going to take us into Hospitable and show us a little bit about the direct booking feature that they recently launched. And then also be sure to come on over to strhub.com because not only do we have information about Hospitable, but other solutions beyond just property management software. And hopefully, we can help you find the right solutions and fit for your needs in your short term rental business. So, thank you so much for joining us today and this week on the Short Term Rental Solutions Show. And be sure to join us next week. All right, Brian, I'm going to go ahead and let you take over here and present. And I'm really looking forward to getting a chance to see a little bit more about this direct booking feature that you guys have.
For sure. All right. I'm sharing my screen with you. I just want to make
All
sure
right.
you're able to see that.
Yep.
So this is the user interface that I was referring to in the podcast. So it's really clean. It's easy to understand what everything is, where everything is. We're not trying to hide anything. We want you to have a good experience using the software, and we're trying to give you all the information up front. So I think what we were going to get into today was the direct booking feature. So
Yeah.
this is a newer feature for us. We talked, a little bit about the overview of direct bookings. So direct bookings is, it's ultimately what everybody wants to get to in their business. So we can help you set up a direct booking website first and foremost. So if you're new to hosting, you don't have a custom site, you want to set up a direct booking website within Hospitable. So there's a 5-step process. So it's really just, deciding what you want your site to be called. And then again, you can use a custom domain, choosing some design options. So these are the theme templates that I was referring to. So, depending on where your property is located, we might have a theme that fits it really well, really,
Mm,
really well. I just chose a clean theme just because none of these really made sense for where my property was located.
okay.
You can add a logo. So if you have a logo for your rental or for your business, you can add that. This is going to be a headline and a sub headline on the front site that's going to make a little bit more sense in a second. And then you can add images for a slider. So maybe if your property is in the mountains, you're going to want to have some images about the mountains, leaf changing, maybe small towns, things like that.
Mhm.
You've got your social icons that we're going to add in for you, and then some information in a footer on the page. After you do that, you can choose the properties that you want to have connected to the direct site. So you don't have to connect every property to direct bookings. You can choose one or two if you have a number of properties. If you have one or two properties, obviously you'd want to have those directly connected. A neat feature for some hosts who might have number of properties in different places, you can create different websites for different properties. So
Oh,
let's say you have a beach property, you have a mountain property, and you have a city property. You can create three different direct booking sites that have different themes and then list each property on their own specific direct booking website. So that's something you can do with an Hospitable. You don't have to have everything lumped on the same direct booking page if you don't want to.
and so would that be considered 3 add-ons as far as your subscription or 1 fee for all of those?
So it's we charge by per property for the direct bookings. So it's not a flat fee for all the direct bookings. It's per property. So for the one site, you're only paying for one property. If you wanted to have three on one site, you're paying for those three properties on one site.
Got
So
it.
it's still going to cost the exact same, but you have the ability and flexibility to kind of list them a little bit differently if you want to.
Mhm.
All right. So this is, let me pull up this page. So this is the direct booking page. So this is the one that I created for my rentals. And again, you've got those images for the slider. Here's the heading and the subheading. You got your
Mhm.
social icons up top. And then we've got the listings. So like I mentioned in the podcast, we're going to just create these listings based on your Airbnb account. So you don't have to create these listings within Hospitable. So they're really, really quickly to get up and running. So we've got your title, we've got your images, the listing description that you've added to the booking channel, and then it's got all your amenities, more information, more images, and then it's got that little map that's going to showcase where that property is located generally.
Mhm.
And then this is the booking widget. So guests can click in here and see what's available. Going to populate the nightly rate, any sort of fees that are associated with this listing or with this reservation. Taxes will be shown later. The two options that you have as a host, so you can either require guests to submit a request similar to Airbnb. It's
Okay.
going to go into your inbox in Hospitable. You can see, through if you're using the verification process, you can see, whether the guest was verified, what their score was through that verification company. You can choose to accept that reservation if you want to take on that risk or that reservation, or you're comfortable with the risk.
Mhm.
Or you can allow us to instant book. So we can do instant book as long as we meet a specific threshold for risk for this reservation. And I'll show you a little bit about that in a second.
Perfect.
But the guest is going to click here. They're going to go through a four-step process to put in some information. So the first is personal details, the billing address, billing details, and then they're going to confirm the reservation. Once they've done that, depending on how the reservation was handled, whether it was instant book or a a request to book, it'll take you over to the inbox, or we'll go over to the inbox, and I'll just show you a reservation I had recently that was a direct booking. So this was a recent guest that I had. So you can see this guest was verified through AutoHost. We can click in here and we can see some information about this verification. So we can see their guest information. This was their vetting link that you can click on, and you can see that there's some risks associated with the reservation.
Mm.
And then we can see that their ID check passed. So I was fine with this reservation. They actually did an instant book.
So you
Uh,
don't have to go over to Hospitable, it's kind of brought into or you don't have to go over to AutoHost, it's brought into Hospitable.
Correct. Yep. So it's brought into Hospitable, so you can see the verification, you can see the screening process. So this guest was considered green through AutoHost. So there's a
Mhm.
few concerns that they list. It's really nothing that I would worry about specifically as a host, but it's 2-night reservation for a larger group, weekend reservation, 2-night reservation, some potential for concern according to AutoHost. I think that's fine. We get a lot of
Mhm.
2-night reservations, especially on weekends, so I
Yeah.
wasn't too worried about this. So this guest became, if they were essentially an instant book guest, just like Airbnb, VRBO, anything like that. So now you can see here's all the scheduled messages that are going to be sent out for this guest before their reservation. All direct booking guests get emails. So we kind of touched on Airbnb, VRBO guests get the native messaging. With
Right.
direct booking guests, they're going to get emails notifications with all the same information that the Airbnb guests are going to get. So now we've got, scheduled messages going out. These are my tasks for my cleaner and my property check person. So they're automatically created with each new reservation and the direct bookings. We've got a lock code that was created for this reservation. So this guest is going to have a smart lock access that was created, specifically for their reservation. And then I'll take you back to the direct site. We can see some different things about the direct booking website. So here's the instant book feature. So I've got that enabled. You can choose a risk threshold. So that guest specifically was a green. So that's where my risk threshold is for instant book. You can choose yellow or orange if you want to. Anybody who's green or above will obviously get instant booked. Anybody who comes in at yellow or orange, they're going to have to send me a request to book. So you don't have to accept instant book reservations if you don't want to. This is an alternative feature, an optional feature. So you can turn this on if you want to. But it's a really neat way to, some guests who might be previous guests through Airbnb, VRBO that we're comfortable with, that we're marketing to directly, they're probably going to come up as green because we know that they're good guests.
Mm.
So this is going to allow them to instantly book without having to send that request. We are going to be indexing all the direct booking websites on Google Vacation Rentals. So this is a feature we're launching pretty soon. So
Mm.
you can choose which properties you want to show up in Google. So if a guest comes to your direct booking website, or excuse me, if a guest goes to Google Vacation Rentals and looks for your city, your properties on the Hospitable site will now show up through Google Vacation Rentals, which is a pretty neat feature. I know a lot of people are
I was
really
gonna say
wanting to.
that's kind of a big deal.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, it's kind of a big deal. So a lot of people are wanting to list their properties on multiple sites. Google is one of them that's kind of an up and comer. So I
Yeah.
think this is going to be a really, really neat feature to drive traffic to your direct site. Because ultimately, we're not doing the marketing for you for direct. That's up to you. Set up some social media accounts, set up some email marketing, market to your previous guests, try to get guests, whatever way you can. But Google Vacation Rentals is kind of a marketing funnel that could help you drive traffic to the direct booking site.
Yeah. Absolutely. That's great.
And then you're going to create your custom cancellation policies. You can create as many policies as you want and assign them to specific properties. And these don't have to be the same as Airbnb, right? So Airbnb, you're going to get credit in their platform and their algorithm for being as flexible as possible. If you want your direct bookings to be a little bit more strict to allow you to keep a little bit of that money just in case, you can absolutely do that. So I set mine up as, 100% refund for the first 24 hours of that reservation, and then 50% until 14 days before check-in, and then 14 or 13 days on, no refund. So it gives me more flexibility to keep that money if the guest cancels through a direct booking than it would through Airbnb or VRBO with a more flexible cancellation policy.
Yeah. That's great.
So the other option you're going to have for creating your direct booking website is going to be, let's get back there, the widget. So you can create some widgets. So if you have a custom site somewhere, like you mentioned, WordPress, you can have your custom content on WordPress and then create your widgets through Hospitable. Again, here's the widget. It's just the calendar view. So guests
Yeah.
can see what's available in the calendar, choose their dates, and then they're going to be shown the fees, cleaning fee, taxes, anything like that. So adding the widget to a custom site is a really, really neat way for somebody who's already been doing some direct bookings or already been doing some marketing to integrate Hospitable and that direct booking platform within what they're already doing.
And I would say WordPress, Wix, and Squarespace, I would say, are the most popular ones. Do you guys integrate with all of those or?
We don't integrate with Wix, and I am honestly I don't really know the difference. So I know Wix is a different kind of platform, but we integrate with WordPress for sure because my custom website is through WordPress. Squarespace is another one. I think there's
Okay.
a lot of other platforms that we do integrate with. Wix is different somehow, and we
Yeah.
don't we don't integrate with Wix.
That's okay. Yeah. Good to know.
Yep. But just like the direct site, the widgets have themes. So you can choose a theme with the widget and it's going to show up
Mm.
kind of different colors, different
Style.
text, different things like that. Exactly.
Yeah.
So depending on the look and the vibe you want on your custom direct site, we've got some widgets that'll probably fit that.
Great.
That's basically the gist of the direct booking platform. So we try to make it easy on you. We give you a couple tools to, set up the direct site, set up the widgets, and then once the guests start coming in, trying to screen everybody, try to provide protection for your property, collect those taxes in the future, remit the taxes for you so you don't have to handle any of that, and just trying to keep everything within this one dashboard. So when you go to your inbox, you're going to see your Airbnb guests, you're going to see your VRBO guests, your Booking.com guests, and your direct booking guests. You're going to see everybody all in the one spot here. And the same thing with the calendar. So your calendar view will showcase your direct bookings, your Airbnb, VRBO, Booking.com, everywhere right in the same place.
Yeah. That's great. Brian, thank you so much. This is really, really helpful, not only to have had a chance to talk about Hospitable, but then the chance to actually get in and see Hospitable and how it actually works kind of natively. And not in the wild, but in action. So,
It's kind of wild sometimes for sure. So I'm not going to fault you on that. But yeah, absolutely. Thank you for having us. We really appreciate the opportunity to chat with you today.
yeah, yeah. So, Brian, tell people how they can find you and find Hospitable.
So hospitable.com, obviously. So you can find us, on our website. You can find us on all the major social media outlets. We do a town hall once every 2 weeks. It's every other Wednesday at
Okay.
noon Eastern time. So the town hall is a really great way to, listen in, hear what's going on with the company. We're very transparent on how the company is doing, on different features we're pushing out, roadblocks we might be having. So we'll have our founder Pierre, some of our product team, support team, sales team will be on the call, and then you can ask questions. So hosts can raise their hand, they can be called up on the stage, and it's a virtual stage, so it's Zoom. So you can be called up on stage. You can talk directly to Pierre, who founded the company. You can talk directly to Andrew, who's the head of our product, and they'll answer questions, kind of tell you, what's going on with the product, what's the next step with this specific feature you're looking for. So that's a great way to get involved and get some questions answered. And then you can always reach us, at growth@hospitable.com or sales@hospitable.com. Then we're willing to answer questions and help you in any way we can.
Awesome. Awesome. Thank you so much. And I can't remember, did we mention it to our podcast listeners? You guys have created a special offer for people who hear about Hospitable through this episode, and you guys are going to extend a special promotion to them. Tell us about that.
Yeah. So anybody who listens to this podcast and signs up and mentions it, we'll give you 25% off for the first 3 months. So that's a really, really nice little break on your billing after the trial is over. And I
Yeah.
think you're going to include a link for that. So just there's going to be a special link to use. So make sure you use that link, and then you'll come through, and we'll call you, we'll email you, we'll show up at your house, whatever we have to do to get you to sign up and help you out.
Wonderful, wonderful. Well, thank you so much again for joining us and educating us on Hospitable. There's so many different companies out there, so it's really nice to be able to bring this information to everyone and help us all stay caught up and educated on what's out there. So, thank you so much.
Well, thanks for having us. We really appreciate it.